By now, we've all heard the news that Powerhouse Hobbs is leaving AEW and expected to go to WWE. But today, there has been plenty of updates regarding Powerhouse Hobbs. New name, potential plans, main roster, NXT, what is happening. We're going to talk about that plus a variety of other stories, and it's all coming up right here on The Angle Show. If you guys want more videos like this, by the way, don't forget to click subscribe. We continue to make so much progress on this channel. We're getting closer and closer to 100,000. Your support would be appreciated. I want to talk about Powerhouse Hobbs. I want to start off talking about Powerhouse Hobbs because, well, that was a really big deal. The whole thing of Powerhouse Hobbs leaving AEW is clearly a bigger deal than most people can imagine. I've been reading all the comments that you guys are making. A lot of you guys seem to be really impressed with the idea of him going to WWE. I rightfully agree. Now, according to Fightful Select and WrestleVotes Radio, WWE does have some major plans for Powerhouse Hobbs. And I know this is definitely going to make people question and debate. And I think that's actually a great part of the conversation because apparently, according to this new report, WWE has a plan for Hobbs, which includes an altered name change. Now, before we talk about where he ends up next, we should probably talk about that. The idea of Powerhouse Hobbs having a name change. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people, time and time again, typically will get upset with. And I understand both sides. If you are somebody who hates the name changes, I get it. Like, I honestly kind of agree with you. But I also understand the idea of WWE changing somebody's name, having ownership over the intellectual property, because if we're being honest, that is good business. Now, the idea here is that WWE is likely to change his name, but it's not guaranteed that he'll change his name completely. So it sounds like Hobbs will probably likely be the name. They might drop the Powerhouse from his name. Listen, if his name is just Hobbs, not a big deal. If they give him something random, something that doesn't make sense, something that's silly, I'll probably be a little critical of it. But if you're just taking out the name Powerhouse and you just call him Hobbs, I don't think that's a big deal. I think a lot of people would be completely fine with that. I think not only would people be fine with it, but I think that would probably be the most realistic thing that ends up happening that people will end up supporting. Because if they give him a name like James something or Tom something, you know, like just some random bullshit, I think obviously that's where you're going to get an argument from fans, and that would probably be a valid argument, right? So Powerhouse Hobbs is in a very interesting spot because the name change seems to be pretty likely, and he probably doesn't care, right? He probably knew about this. Now, with that being said, we got to talk about his future. And where does his future lie? Because there's a lot of people wondering about his future, and it seems to me that I actually may not agree with this necessarily, because according to Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, they've confirmed that WWE has obviously had several years of interest with Powerhouse Hobbs. We know that he doesn't have a non-compete clause. There is a possibility that WWE hotshots him right away to the main roster. What's actually crazier is there is a chance that we could see him on SmackDown this week. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but the expectation is that he'll be joining SmackDown. So just imagine that for a second. They would have Powerhouse Hobbs bypass NXT and immediately go to SmackDown. Now, I'm going to be honest. I like Hobbs. He can immediately go into the main roster and be a threat. But we just got Matt Cardona back. We have some call-ups. We got Trick Williams. We got a lot of new names on SmackDown. Do we really need a main roster debut for Hobbs? Would it be better to move him to NXT onto a show that actually needs main event players? Hobbs does not need NXT, but I think NXT needs him more. There's all these call-ups and new signings. There's rumors of WWE bringing in David Finlay. I'm curious if maybe the conversation should be more so about WWE's needs, because we're going into WrestleMania season. Not everybody's going to get on that WrestleMania card unless they do like a 6-man ladder match for a US title. Same thing for the IC title. But I don't foresee WWE doing that. My point that I'm making here is I think NXT actually needs a little bit more help than Raw or SmackDown. at the moment. And then what's cool is Powerhouse Hobbs could go to NXT, win the championship, and then come up to the main roster. That's probably not happening, though. But that's okay, too. That's okay, too. But I'm just saying, I'd almost rather see him go into NXT first and then move on from there. All right, let's turn our attention to TNA. Some pretty huge news for TNA. It's been revealed today that Dolph Ziggler has re-signed with the company. And my apologies, I call him Dolph Ziggler, but we should all know by now. It's been 2 years since he debuted at TNA Hard to Kill. And but it is true, Nick Nemeth has re-signed for multiple years with TNA. Now, it's hard to believe this because a lot of people may have not known this, but Nick Nemeth, when he joined TNA, they didn't lock him down with some long-term agreement. They had like some sort of handshake, verbal agreement. But now, pen to paper, he's re-signed with the company for multiple years. I could sit here and talk about this for a good 20 to 30 minutes, and maybe that's what we'll do. Because Nick Nemeth is a great utility in professional wrestling. And I say utility, and I mean this respectfully. He could come in, be a world champion. He can come in and mentor. He can come in and make other people look good. He can come in and offer a lot of help backstage. That's what I mean by utility. But Nick Nemeth still has name value. He still has great quality matches, great promos. I don't want to see him with his brother on television, quite frankly. I don't. I think I would like to see him more as a singles guy. But Nick Nemeth is fun to watch. And TNA re-signing him is a good thing. They've re-signed the Hardys. They've re-signed, or they've signed the Righteous. You know, this is somebody you got to push and you got to use him. And, you know, they re-signed Mustafa Ali last week, or maybe that was earlier this week. My point that I'm trying to make is TNA is not going to beat AEW and WWE when it comes to free agent signings all the time. They're not. But that's okay. They don't need to. What they need to do is look at their roster, look at who they're going to invest in, and then actually invest in that person. And with them being on AMC Network, I'm excited about this. With them going to AMC Network, I get excited and thrilled about the idea of Nick Nemeth possibly steering the ship. You got Mike Santana there. As of now, it looks like he's staying within the company. You got Mustafa Ali. You have some quality people. And on top of that, you have plenty of free agents to go after. I mean, just yesterday we were talking about EC3 potentially coming into TNA. So just imagine that. TNA, they're in a very precarious situation because I think they are often counted out. I think wrestling fans often want to count out TNA, but what I think wrestling fans need to do is just enjoy what they enjoy. Nick Nemeth could have gone to AEW and he would have been a nobody. He could have remained in WWE and also been a nobody. But with him working at TNA, I feel like it's a chance for him to be one of the guys. The show being built around him. It's really hard to see something negative in that. You know? We should have a conversation about the equity that TNA has in their talent. Because sometimes they do very well and sometimes they don't. And I will probably complain about Jake something not being there, not being re-signed. I'll probably complain about the Rascals not being re-signed. But you won't hear me complain about them. You'll hear me praise them when you see that they've re-signed Nick Nemeth. That's a quality star. Matt Cardona just left TNA to go back to WWE. It's not a secret. People knew that's where he wanted to be. For the last 5 years, he has made it clear, my goal is to get back there. And good for him. He was able to do it. He was able to accomplish that. Doesn't look like Nick Nemeth had the same aspiration. So it tends to be a positive thing for professional wrestling when these three big companies have talent who are loyal, but it's also a good thing when they have talent who are saying, no, I want to go test. I want to test myself in another company. And I actually think that makes professional wrestling better. Don't let these idiots fool you on the internet. There is nothing wrong with wrestlers being loyal to AEW and wrestlers being loyal to WWE and wrestlers being loyal to TNA. But there is also nothing wrong when the Rascals want to leave TNA, when Powerhouse Hobbs wants to leave AEW, and when Tommaso Ciampa wants to leave WWE. Fresh matchups are needed. Nick Nemeth being in TNA is definitely a good thing. And I can't wait to see what they do. But it's not just about Nick Nemeth either, because apparently they have a major surprise for their debut on AMC Network. And I want to talk about that a little bit as well. Now, we have heard rumors and rumors and rumors of TNA bringing in talent. We've heard of EC3. We've seen his videos on social media circulating. He's teasing bringing back the top 1% gimmick. However, Fightful Select had dropped a very interesting report. And just keep in mind, at the time of this video, we are just a few hours away from TNA going live on AMC with their new TV deal, which, again, just a congratulations to them in general, because it is a remarkable achievement. It's an amazing thing for professional wrestling that we have wrestling on AMC, TBS, TNT, USA Network, the CW, Netflix. It just keeps getting better for professional wrestling fans. But apparently, there's some issues with TNA because of visas and things of that. And, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's some talent who aren't able to make it to the show because of visas, but it looks like TNA has something really big in the works because apparently there is a roster shift, and Fightful Select is reporting that somebody is set to show up tonight, and apparently this name is somebody from out of left field. Like, this is somebody, like, nobody expected this. Now, it's really hard for me. I genuinely struggle with getting hyped up for professional wrestling. I podcast every day about it. I want to say this very clearly. I feel like wrestling companies have been absolutely terrible with hyping up things. Now, this is not being hyped up from TNA themselves. They are not saying it publicly, but the report suggests that a major debut is set to take place on TNA Impact live on AMC. So it could be EC3, but everybody's kind of expecting that already, so I don't think that's really out of left field. Who could it be? Who is it that TNA is bringing in? It could very well be good. It could very well be bad. I don't know. But I hate to hype things up. I have complained about this for the last 6 years. Between AEW and WWE and TNA, all hyping up new eras, new signings, this segment, that segment, it is growing increasingly frustrating. And so I don't want to buy into the hype. I will say this. I have personally heard myself, and I've alluded to this in other live streams that I've done on the channel, but I have personally heard myself that TNA had a couple free agent names, and I also heard of potential WWE talent who could be crossing over into TNA. Some of those names I've heard are very impressive. And I've heard of a free agent that a lot of people aren't talking about, but should be talking about, potentially being in TNA. And if you remember those live streams, I had told you who it was, but I cannot confirm it is true. And so if today's debut is in fact that person, you guys will obviously know if you watch my live streams. But I don't want to confirm that or put it out into the world as a report because I don't have confirmation on that. But the fact that TNA is planning a major debut of some kind for the show is pretty huge. But if it's EC3, and no disrespect to EC3 either, great performer, but if it's EC3, that's not really out of left field. I think people are kind of expecting that with his videos, which I'm good with. I'm good with EC3 returning, but that's just not like a massive thing. I'll be honest with you. I will tell you guys, especially last night if you watched my live stream, there was a monster among men that could potentially be TNA bound. So that's who I think it is. But I don't have confirmation on that. I don't know how true that is. But that is something I have heard. And if that were to be true, I would be pretty excited about it. I really would be. With that being said, TNA has one chance tonight. They only have one chance. And because they only have one chance, they really have to deliver well. They have to come correct. They cannot sit here and just kind of figure it out. You have to swing for the fences. That world championship match means everything. So hopefully TNA figures it out. Hopefully they make a big splash tonight. And hopefully we see some serious growth from TNA. Because I would be extremely happy about that for sure. And really quickly, I just want to reiterate some stuff about TNA and the talent. Because this was like a big thing that I feel as if maybe we didn't elaborate enough on. But there is some stuff about TNA stars missing the show due to visa issues. Like Danny Luna, for example, may not be making the show. TNA is expected to make some roster changes. TNA is expected to make some changes. People are going to be coming and going. So I just kind of want to touch on that for a moment because I do think as if these are out of TNA's control. You cannot blame TNA for it. And I'm not here to defend TNA, but naturally, shit happens. So with all these things that are happening in TNA, just be mindful of that. They're making some roster changes. Some people will be there. Some people won't be there. It is what it is. We'll be back tomorrow with more wrestling news.